Welcome back to the Rain Race Podcast, or welcome if it's your first time. I'm wearing the Cadillac racing shirt tonight, which means, as always, unbiased. We're talking about a Cadillac racing win, which is actually more rare than we might expect between the WEC and IMSA. But nonetheless, welcome home. Welcome to home, Stu. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Those Cadillac racing wins have been more of a common thing lately. With where did they win at Coda too, right?
They won in Brazil.
Brazil. Close enough, right?
Yeah.
It's just one America's away, the South American variety.
Yeah, only about halfway around the world, but
that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Yeah, it's good. Got back from Indy in one piece, so that's always nice. Had a lovely little drive home, but yeah, it's been just settling back into the regular grind again. Sad not being at the track, but such is life.
Well, let's start with the important questions. I talked to you after the show last week. Number one, Long's Donuts or Bakery? Yes or no?
I didn't actually. So I stopped in, didn't realize it was cash only.
Ooh.
And at this point, it was I only got to get there on Monday morning as I was on my way out of town. I figured I would bring some donuts home, as a little return gift. And didn't. I think I had $2 in U.S. currency on me. So. And they didn't have an ATM that I could see. So I was like, well, this sucks, but such is life. So I'm going to have to make the trek back.
I was going to say, maybe safe to assume it won't be your only time going to IMS.
I think that is safe to assume. It impressed me.
Yeah. Well, so much for this facility itself. How about the race? We've had a 6-hour race to recap the last endurance race, for now at least, at IMS. On the IMSA side of things, of course, they also have that 8-hour GT America or IGTC race there as well. What did you think? Overall impressions? It's the second to last penultimate endurance race of the year, but also the penultimate IMSA WeatherTech race of the year as well. Bit of a mixed bag, but overall, I thought it was a pretty good race. What about you?
I mean, I'm trying to think back, like after this race. Thinking back on all three of the races that we've had here, and all three of them have been pretty solid. We have had weather that's interfered with. I honestly can't remember really year one at all. I can't remember if there was any weather interference that year, but definitely weather interference last year with the rain. And then this year we got sort of that all clear weather running, and it was great, right? Like we got to see some great racing play out, some great battles right down to the line. We had some fuel strategy that was playing into things. I don't know. There's a lot of positives, I think, to take away from this race and from Indy for me anyways. It was like I said, I've had a hard time looking back at the races over the years and been like, oh yeah, that was a dud of a race at Indy. So maybe we need to face the facts that like Indy has produced more good racing than we ever expected that it was going to when it was first announced that it was coming onto the calendar.
Yeah, can I hit you with a hot take? Maybe it's a hot take, but it sort of goes with what you're saying. I got to be honest with you. When I was watching this race, I was like, well, there's a lot of really good on-track battles going on here. As you said, when the race is dry and when it's not a mess, like it has been a few times before. But once the racing actually gets into a good green flag run, I didn't have a whole lot of complaints. And I got to a point, crazy as it is to say, where I was thinking, we might miss this race as an endurance race.
Yeah.
And that's wild to say because I think most people associate the IMS road course as just this bland, flat track that doesn't offer a ton of excitement. I know on the IndyCar side of things with the Grand Prix there, hasn't really offered too many barn burner races. And I think for sports car racing, we've generally said a lot of the same. But overall, I mean, I left this race without a whole lot of complaints in mind. So who knows? Maybe come next year, we'll be a little bit disappointed that this is back down to a 2 hour, 40-minute race.
Yeah, I think no, I think that's I think that's a I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have coming out of this race is that yeah, we might be a little bit disappointed next year that we're only 2 hours and 40 minutes sprint race. And are we gonna maybe a little bit of a reduced field from what we have for a Michelin Endurance Cup race? We usually see that it's a little bit smaller, although it's Indy. On the flip side, like, we could see a little bit of a larger. It could end up bumping up, maybe not bumping up to the 53 cars I think that we had this weekend, but maybe a little bit stronger than your average sprint race could be for attendance wise. But yeah, produce some really great racing, maybe kind of a perfect storm of everything. And I know we're going to probably talk about this a little bit more as we go along tonight, but with the IMSA and race control cracking down on driving standards more this weekend, I think that played in really nicely into this race as well, because we did get to see a lot of those really good, clean, and hard battles still, that just didn't result in somebody being squeezed off the track all that often. And there were still incidents. There were still cars making contact. There were still full course yellows that were brought out as a result of on track sort of racing incidents. But for the most part, I don't think that that overwhelmed what the actual racing product that we saw, and sort of overshadowed that racing product that we saw this weekend, like we had at Road America. So yeah, I don't really have much negative to say about the quality of the racing that we saw this weekend at all.
There was a bit of a common denominator with a lot of the incidents we did see.
Yes.
Being the LMP2 class, this race, it was just one of those races for LMP2. But overall, I'd say in the other three classes, it was pretty clean throughout. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk too much about those LMP2 incidents. Of course, they ended up bringing out that final yellow flag that sort of changed the ending of this race a little bit. But
yeah, I think it's easy to overgeneralize, LMP2 incidents. They were without a doubt a problem, especially in the early going of the race. With the first hour of the race, we had 2 full course yellows. I guess it was only 2. We had one 2.5 minutes in, and then 11 minutes in. So we had a couple of really quick ones there, and then we had that one at the very end as well. But that one at the very end, like, it's a pro driver that's in the car at that point. We're not talking about the bronze drivers that are generally the ones causing a lot of these accidents. Usually the pros at this point are, like, providing us with an incredible finish. How many times have we talked about LMP2, the races ending, with a really close finish, some good battles in the final hour? And there were some good battles going on here. Like, there was some good racing that went on sort of after the bit of messy business early on in the race. And the last incident, which probably is ingrained in a lot of people's minds, was, it's an unfortunate one. It was just a driver mistake by a pro driver at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, Mr. Waffles is, makes the comparison to the, shades of LMP3. I think we got to take a step back and remember how bad LMP3 was for a large chunk of that, and continue to appreciate some of what the P2 class has done for us. But yeah, they were certainly causing problems at times in this race.
maybe it's your fault.
Maybe
the last race we were talking about LMP2 being a bit of an issue was CTMP.
Oh, I was there.
Of course, you were at Watkins Glen before that. I can't remember if they were an issue there.
I wasn't at Road America though, and that was like peak. So, but that was everybody. It wasn't just LMP2.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, like you said, I was really glad to see that IMSA was maintaining consistency with the race control standards that they were holding up from VIR. This was the first time, and one of the big questions I had going into this race is whether or not they would continue that with all four classes on track. Looked like they did, and as we're talking about for the other classes, very clean, hard racing throughout the majority of the race. We did see some penalties for different teams throughout. But overall, I could talk about some of the highlights. I think the GTP class, a lot of good showing there. If there is a team that honestly was a bit of an outlier this race, it's probably the Penske Porsches. I said at one point during this race that this was one of the worst IMSA races I had seen from that Factory 963 program since it started. One of the cars, I believe it was the 7 car, got a few penalties throughout the race. And just really, to be honest with you, they didn't have the pace to be up front, but it didn't look like a championship caliber team at this weekend. Very un-Penske-like and very uncommon for that program in particular.
Yeah. I think you kind of alluded to sort of the pace that they had this weekend. They definitely didn't have, the same pace as certainly Cadillac or Acura, but it's not like they had where did they end? They ended up finishing 12th and 7th. Like, they had pace that I think, if they run a regular Porsche Penske race, like, they're reasonably, both those cars are in the top 5. There was just so many mistakes that both of the cars were making over the course of the race. I think they both picked up blocking penalties early in the race, which, to be fair, there were a lot of penalties in this race. A lot of cars and drivers, especially in the first half, were picking up penalties. So this wasn't only a them thing. But yeah, just an uncharacteristic race. Picked up, like the 7 was battling to try and get back on the lead lap sort of late in the race and took out the GTD leader, which was really unfortunate for Triarci. The run that they've been on, they're still trying to challenge for, they were still in the running for one of the top spots in the GTD championship. Fortunate for them to get taken out for no fault of their own. But yeah, all of these things kind of just add up to an uncharacteristic weekend for them. And, everybody's going to have these, no team is going to stay perfect for the entire season. But yeah, maybe a little bit of a crack in the armor for Porsche this weekend. And fortunately for them, it didn't cost them tremendously in the championship standings. They're still heading into Petit Le Mans as, heavy favorites with a healthy gap to bring that home. But yeah, I think there's going to be some eyes that are focused in on them, maybe for more reasons than just what we're seeing on the track at the time at come Petit Le Mans, but to right the ship and put in a solid final race of the season for them.
Yeah, I think what you said sort of hammers home what I was saying, where they probably didn't have the ultimate pace to win, but they haven't had that ultimate pace at a few races this year, especially some of the more recent ones. But what really set this race aside was the fact that they weren't capitalizing on the pace that they did have. Picking up penalties for both cars throughout the race. It just wasn't a very characteristic performance from Penske. And I know, you still talk about the advantage that they have going into Petit Le Mans in the championship. One of the things we talked about in the episode last week leading up to this was, this is sort of that last shot for any of these other teams to take a stab at Penske and try to put themselves in a position where they may be an outside shot at Petit Le Mans.
Yep.
I look at teams like BMW. They weren't able to capitalize quite as much with the 24 car. They only finished 4th here. Meyer Shank Racing, finished 3rd. Ultimately, they weren't...
Wrong car, though. That was the car they need the other one.
Right. I mean, ultimately, neither of those teams were able to claw back too much out of this race, which is really what they needed to do. So only half of the puzzle was fulfilled for them. But yeah, I don't really know if there's anything else I have to talk about there. They were also actually getting in the way, though, and I do want to talk about this, of the Lamborghini SC63. I know at the end of last week's show, you threw in a quick, hey, don't forget about this. Lamborghini might actually finish in the top 5 this weekend. And I said, you know what, let's make it more interesting. I think Lamborghini can finish on the podium. That Porsche that was fighting to get back on the lead lap, it was a 7, right?
The 7, yeah.
Yeah. Actually ended up holding up Grosjean and the Lamborghini, it seemed, on one of those final restarts. To the point where Townsend Bell was like screaming on TV, oh, you got to, Grosjean just needs to let them go. They're a lap down. They just let them drive up the road. But they weren't pulling away from the Lamborghini by any means. So it's, it turned into a bit of a, we don't have blue flag rules in IMSA. They're in their right to fight to try to get back on the lead lap. But at the same time, Grosjean can't do anything too stupid because we have much stricter race directing going on right now. And if he made a mistake that ended up taking out the Porsche, well, that completely throws their race away. I was pretty impressed, though, of the performance that we saw out of the Lamborghini this weekend.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, kind of a worst case scenario on the way that race ended up finishing with them. But I'll tell you what, multiple times in that final hour, I was looking at the GTP telemetry on IMSA's site, and I was like, well, hang on a second here. There's like an outside chance that Lamborghini is looking really good here, because for a while I didn't know if the 31 could make it to the end. The 10 certainly wasn't going to be making it to the end. I wasn't sure about the 60. It was really between the 40 and the 63. And at that point of the race, the 63 was ahead. So I wasn't completely counting them out in that final hour of the race. I do think that they got, maybe stolen a little bit of potential away from what we could have seen out of that car.
Absolutely. It was, you had that feeling with the SC63, like on that final run, I think they made some contact with somebody, and they came immediately down pit road, I think just to make sure that double check and make sure they didn't have a tire that was down. But also at this point, they kind of knew that they needed a little bit of a splash to be able to make it to the end, and kind of got that out of the way early in the stint. And yeah, if we don't have that late full course yellow, then, you're looking pretty good if you're the 63. And you mentioned the 40 as well. The 40 came down and topped up just before what turned out to be the second to final stint got underway with just around an hour to go. So yeah, we could have had we probably would have had a completely different podium, a completely different set of winners here, had the race stayed green if we don't get that late full course yellow. But that's what made this race so great. I felt like as well, we had all of these storylines that were kind of coming together really well in that final hour. You had the troubles that Penske had, and you had the SC63 and the pace that they had shown throughout the race. You had Cadillac as well dominating this race, something that we haven't seen a Cadillac dominate like this since, I don't know if the 01 necessarily dominated Petit Le Mans last year. I feel like they led a fair chunk of it, but I don't really remember true domination since maybe like the 31 had been, really strong, but even they couldn't pull off a win before. So, early last year.
Yeah,
so,
Sebring.
Yeah, but that wasn't even like, Sebring, was that when they had the big crash last year though? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there was just so many storylines going on, and that's just in GTP. We had some great ones going on in the GT classes as well. So yeah, unfortunate for the SC63, the 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin kind of forgot about them over the course of the race, to be honest. They were just kind of doing their thing, which I feel like they just have done throughout the season. Just quietly go about their business, and they probably deserved a finish like a little bit better than what they ended up with. But man, there was so much good on track action this weekend.
Yeah, and let's wrap this up by talking about another good storyline that a couple of years ago wouldn't be a crazy storyline, but a victory for the Action Express Whelen Cadillac. And this is the first victory that they've had since 2023 Sebring.
Wild.
Insane stat. in the grand
Wild.
scheme of IMSA prototype racing. That has to have been the longest winless streak they've ever had. Dating well back even into the early days,
Yeah.
even like pre-merger. Um, but yeah, just a well executed race from them. Like you said, you mentioned it was sort of a dominant result from them. I wouldn't say they were a walk away with this race. I mean, they
No.
there were moments where they were definitely challenged, but ultimately, what we didn't see from them this race were some of the mistakes that they've made in the past when they were in a position to either win or potentially win. Just a pretty clean race overall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they led a large majority of the race. But yeah, as you said, there was always like one of the fellow Cadillacs that was there, or you were looking at the Acuras, and because we knew that they had strong pace over the weekend. It didn't feel like, the 31 wasn't waltzing out to a, 15-20 second lead and then just managing the gap. It was part of this had to do with, just the nature of IMSA, with, generally speaking, a fair number of full course yellows. But yeah, they did everything right. It really felt like a bit of a breakout performance as well, kind of for Jack Aitken. We've known that he's, a strong driver. But previously maybe always kind of being a bit in the shadow of Pipo Derani on that team. And now that Aitken is, he's been with that team for a couple of seasons now, if not more than a couple of seasons, but, spent a fair number of time with that team and that car. It really felt like, like a big breakthrough performance for Jack and the entire team. I mean, all three drivers did great, but Jack's performance was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And any other comments about the GTP class?
No, I think that was it. You kind of alluded to BMW and just not having the day that they really needed to truly take advantage of Porsche's down day and really jump up into the championship. But yeah, I felt like BMW was just kind of like I said that Aston Martin was quietly just doing their thing. BMW was certainly just like very quietly doing their thing, and never really had the pace to contend here after, of course, going their 1-2 finish last year.
Yeah, and also coming off that 1-2 at Road America. Yeah, I would have said the same.
Yep.
I do want to spend some time though talking about GTD Pro, which again, another barn burner race in GTD Pro. I think come the end of the season in IMSA, I mean, like hands down, unless some other class just absolutely burns down the building at Petit Le Mans, GTD Pro is probably going to be the class that was the most exciting this year, both in on-track action and potentially for the championship as well. Of course, we're still talking about the championship battle between the 3 Corvette and the Dragon Speed Ferrari. Two of them were pretty close to each other for the majority of this race as well, but just in general, we had some incredible on-track action. I haven't caught the official IMSA highlights of this race, but I'm sure a lot of it is occupied with some of the on-track action we've seen over there. And as we said earlier, mostly clean in that class as well. I know that Rexy, the AO Racing Porsche, unfortunately got caught up in some messes later on in that race. But apart from that, I can't really think of any standouts that would detract from what we saw.
Yeah, it was impressive to see. It definitely appeared like the GT classes from the drop of the green flag in this race kind of got the message from VIR, and that, the hammer was coming down, and they had the benefit of having that, experience from VIR and, what this sort of version of race control was going to bring.
The new mean IMSA.
The new mean IMSA.
No more nice IMSA.
No more
IMSA now.
No more nice Bo. It's Bo means business now.
I'm gonna put that on a shirt and wear it to
Yeah, Bo
fatigue.
means business.
IMSA,
and then
we work for
the
free.
IMSA move over underneath it.
Listen, we work for free here.
We work for free, guys. These are great merch ideas. So yeah, you alluded to the good battles. We saw Ford up there battling. We saw BMW, Corvette, the Porsche, the Ferrari from Dragon Speed was pretty quiet for most of the race, but they just kind of went about their thing and clawed their way into the fight at the end of it and come home with a really good finish. That's great for them in the championship. It was a lot of fun to watch GTD Pro and sort of how the battles evolved over the race. And like you said, we didn't see really, there was maybe a couple of, little bumpy moments, but it was great to watch these guys race here. Just so many battles between so many manufacturers. The only real mistake, I think it was truly a mistake, was the 65 Ford made a pretty big mistake around I think it was around 2 hours to go at this point. Maybe a little bit longer, but they got into the 40 GTP Cadillac and spun them around. And that kind of killed the 40s race. I think they had to come in and I think they had to make an unscheduled stop. I can't really remember, but definitely took them out. They didn't have the same pace that they showed in the first half of the race after that. And the 65 broke suspension or something like that, and had to spend some time in the garage. But yeah, that really the only messy point of the race for GTD Pro.
That's the one in turn 1, right?
Yeah, it was in turn 1.
Because I remember seeing that, and I haven't watched it since, but it seemed to me like that was the 40's fault, if anyone.
No, I think the 65 got a penalty for it, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they just, because the 40 was the 40 was behind two other GTPs that were kind of duking it out. It might have been one of the Porsches and the Lamborghini that were duking it out, and the 40 kind of eased into turn 1 a little bit. But the 65, I don't know if they just got caught out by the 40 easing up a little bit more than they expected, but it was a pretty big send. I think, again, unintentional, but regardless, it didn't really end that well for either of them. As I think the 65, I think they were leading, or they were right up there in the thick of it at that point, because Fords looked very fast.
Yeah, apart from that, I'm trying to think if there was one side-by-side moment. I want to say it was one of the Paul Miller BMWs. I can't even remember who it was, to be honest with you. But they were side-by-side for like half a lap. And I can't remember who it was. So I guess I'll have to drop it. But well, just points to what I was talking about earlier with how quality the racing was and how clean it was overall.
It might have been Rec. They might have been with Rec.
I was thinking it might have been the AO as well, but I can't remember. I'm sure it's in the highlights.
There were so many good battles. It's hard to remember them all.
Yeah.
And I guess before we move off of GT Pro, which I mean we'll be doing shortly, I suppose, but sure. The one real disappointment I think in this class was the 75 Express Mercedes. We know that Mercedes has been really strong here in previous years. Of course, the Kenny Habul, Brock Feeney, Michael Grenier lineup is a strong one, and especially with Michael Grenier being probably the closer there. You had Brock Feeney making his IMSA debut. Doing very, very well in the Supercars Championship right now. So disappointment for them all around. They picked up pretty much every penalty you could imagine under the sun. Lots of like pit road related ones, and kind of just a sign of a team that doesn't race in IMSA a whole lot, and just maybe getting caught out by some of the nuances of it. But it was unfortunate to see them struggle as much as they did. They didn't end up finishing the race either, but yeah, unfortunate to see them down in the running order and not really all that competitive.
Well, I was going to make the same point where we've seen a lot of changes with IMSA recently, where they could get caught out by a penalty that they might not have gotten caught out with before. Um, but as you alluded to, this is a Michelin Endurance Cup team, so they don't have that same level of experience that some of these other teams have had over the past few races. Um, yeah, I don't know if there's a lot else to say about that. All right, how about GTD? Last one to go over here.
Yes, it is. GTD was kind of another classic GTD race. We had no idea who was going to win it until you get down to it in the final stint. We had lots of comers and goers throughout this race. Windward Racing looked like they were kind of gonna walk away with another one here, but I think they picked up a late race speeding penalty. I think they were 1 mile an hour over on that final pit stop, so that cost them dearly. They still managed to finish fifth, but a win for them would have pretty well, I think it would have locked up the championship for sure. So instead, there's technically a mathematical possibility of the 27, being able to catch them. You had other cars, the 27, the pole sitting car, the Heart of Racing. The last 3 races that they've sat on pole, they have won those races. So obviously that streak is broken. They also got spun around in the opening few hours of the race, the opening half of the race at least. They weren't really able to ever, recover from that and make their way back through the field like I kind of expected them to. So unfortunate for them. Didn't really. They still ended up actually losing ground to the 57 in the championship. There was another couple cars that were really strong at times as well. The 45 Wayne Taylor Racing Lamborghini, they started dead last in this class. But they managed to, throughout the entire race, they clawed their way to the front. And then with an hour to go, they have, what did it end up being? I think it was a gearbox that it ended up being that broke. I think the broadcast initially thought something else, differential, but it ended up being a gearbox. They bought that one break this year. They got that one break at CTMP, and that's been it for them. So they were running third at the time when that happened. And then you had the 021 Ferrari that I mentioned, a moment ago. Like they got dumped by the number 7 Porsche in the closing hour and a half or so of the race. Lost a bunch of track position, obviously, and were never able to recover from that. They were leading the class at the time, or maybe it wasn't the 021 because they switched the numbers this weekend, didn't they? 023 Ferrari, the red one, got dumped. So, just lots of action again here in GTD. It seemed like a pretty clean race, overall, from the GTD cars, even though we did have some, there was certainly a decent amount of cars failing to finish for various reasons, but yeah, GTD, another solid battle, and the winning car, big breakthrough win for them.
Yeah, big breakthrough. Not a drama-free race for them though. They actually ended up bringing out one of the yellows middle of the race. I can't remember exactly.
I know this is the one that was the Inception brought out the yellow with an hour to go.
Okay.
It was, the hood on the front straightaway.
Yeah, I didn't know if they had already picked up damage before that. It seems very uncommon that it would just be that loose that it would fly off, but they were behind one of the GTP cars, I believe, or was it an LMP2? I can't remember. I want to say it was one of the GTP cars. And the hood just flew off, brought out the full course yellow for the second to last time in the race. But ultimately, very quick fix for them. I was trying to figure out, because NBC has a lot of commercial breaks, I'm sure you may be aware.
I was that can of worms.
I was trying to figure out if they had ever even replaced that or not. Townsend Bell was sort of joking around that he once drove around without a hood, and it was actually a little bit faster, which a little difficult to believe. But they did go in and end up replacing that. Would have been a quick fix, and got back out and didn't lose a whole lot of ground. So, yeah, like you said, it was a deserved victory for them in a season that's been probably more disappointing than they want to admit. The only other podium that they had this year was back at Watkins Glen, where they finished second. But first victory for Inception since switching over to that Ferrari. Actually, it was a year ago at this race, right? Where they switched over from the McLaren. So
it was. Yeah, and it's huge for them too, because it brings them even in the Bronze Cup now with AWA. So it's a winner take all. Whoever finishes in front of who at Petit Le Mans between the 70 and the 13 is getting an invitation to Le Mans next year. So that is going to be a fun one to watch out for at Petit.
Yeah, and of course, we're talking about the two teams that have won that Bob Aiken Award the past 2 years. So,
yep,
setting it up nice. Winner takes all, Petit Le Mans. What could go wrong?
Indeed.
Any closing thoughts from the Indy weekend?
No, just like I think overall my big takeaway from Indy was like the facility and everything that comes with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I think without a doubt is like the best. It is the best facility on the IMSA calendar without a doubt. In my opinion, of
fighting
the track
for Daytona.
Oh, hey, listen, your trackside at Daytona, what track can you go to from a viewing perspective where you have like anywhere you pretty well look, there's a TV that you can see what's going on.
That's true.
Where there's actually good speakers where you can hear through them of what's going on in the race. Like sure, Indy comes up short on some things from a viewing perspective, but like I thought facility wise that it was, I think it's the best for the best facility, even better than Daytona. So that was my maybe hot take coming out of it. But overall, like, Indy was impressive. I didn't really know what to expect going into it, and it impressed me. The crowd turnout was certainly better than, again, I was expecting, and my expectations were set from what I saw on broadcasts in previous years. Definitely more fans on the ground than what you see on the broadcasts. The grid walk was as packed of a grid walk as I've seen. Anytime you were walking through the garages, there was always a ton of fans that were around. So it was. I'm happy that was able to experience this one at Indy and put on a great show for us. We were very lucky with the show it put on.
Well, there you go. It's passing grade all around. It sounds from both of us. Last question from me. Get any pizza from Brozini's on Main Street?
No,
is it 16th Street? I don't know Indy streets at all, but yeah, there's a pizza place. I won't forgive them for burning my mouth twice before the Indy 500 last year. Fool me once.
I should have asked for some food recommendations before I went. There was one place that I went to. It was on the complete other side of town though, and it was an incredible pork tenderloin sandwich from a little place called Steer Inn. And incredible.
I got some friends in Indy. I'll have to ask them about it.
Yep.
Or maybe I'll say it in my back pocket.
It's very highly rated everywhere. So, yeah, Steer in. Incredible onion rings, too. You should have saw these things. Huge.
Well, I'll take that into my back pocket if I go to either the Indy 500 or to this IMSA race next year. But I think that's good enough to call it there for now.
Indeed.
Couple little pieces of news that I want to go over, and then we'll wrap it up with a WEC preview for this weekend. The only real news I do want to talk about this episode, because we have had some rumors come up. Some of the things directly relating to what we were talking about last week. I'm going to save a lot of that until at least next week because, well, let's just give it a little bit more time to bask and see if we get any more confirmation on some of those. But this morning we did get confirmation, maybe a little bit of a surprising one, that Ford will be operating their hypercar program in 2027 in the World Endurance Championship fully in-house. When I saw that initially, that headline, I was like, oh, it kind of makes sense. It's not the craziest thing I've ever seen. But then you start to unpack what that really means. Well, it immediately downplays some of the rumors that we've heard that Penske might be leaving Porsche and picking up a Ford operation, unless I suppose they were to do something like that in IMSA. But all things point to that not happening in 2027. Proton, we also discussed, maybe they were in the running to pick up the Ford hypercar effort. Ganassi, I've seen their name tossed around a little bit as well. But no, it will be a fully Ford-operated program run out of their bases, both in the United States and in the United Kingdom. Actually, they're only the third hypercar team to be fully in-house alongside Toyota and Peugeot. So, it's a statement of commitment for Ford, or a statement of strength, I suppose, and how serious they are with that program right out of the gate, that they're putting their name behind it. This is operated under the Ford Racing name, which is, of course, recently renamed from Ford Performance, which I think only started in 2024 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, great to see. It's really, like I said, a showing of how serious they are right off the ground for this program that's going to be starting up in a little bit over a year in the WEC.
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder what sort of groundwork they've been laying for this, right? Or how, or what groundwork they're going to start to lay for this, because I guess they're still a couple of years away from debut. Was it a 2027 debut?
Yeah, it's
or
27, so you're only talking like 15 months.
Yeah,
No, because we're talking, testing. You're going to want to be testing probably by summer next year.
Yeah, that's true.
But for an on-track debut in the WC, like 17-ish months.
So I wonder if we see them kind of follow the path that like Genesis has done, right? Where they, you want to get a team together to run in, maybe a season of the European Le Mans Series or something like that. So that you can build that team up, and because you don't want to be jumping into your first race with this brand new car and with a totally green crew or anything like that as a green team. So I wonder, it's going to be interesting to see like what kind of further news comes out of the Ford camp on how they're going to be attacking this in-house team run program, or if they may do some sort of maybe a more low-key partnership with another team as well to help get this off the ground, kind of again like what Genesis has done with EDEC.
Yeah, and I guess I forgot about Genesis because they would be the fourth fully in-house. Yeah. It was not on the ground right now, of course, but starting next year. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot more to unpack about this right now. More details to come. Of course, this is an Orica LMDH chassised car. It's V8 engine powered. But apart from that, we don't have a whole lot of details. But moving into next year, certainly we're going to be hearing a lot more about this program, seeing what this car looks like, and starting to see some on-track testing probably around sometime next summer or early fall at the latest.
Yeah, and like the driver announcements and everything that'll come with that. Like this is all going to be coming out fairly soon. You got to think so. Could be a really big off season of news for out of the Ford camp.
Yep. All right. I guess that's all I have to discuss about that. The only other thing I will discuss right now, just because I heard it from a good source, that an announcement of Porsche's prototype racing future should be imminent right now. That's all I can tell you because that's all I was told. I have no idea which way that swings, but I was just told that we should be expecting that announcement very, very soon. Keep in mind we're on track this weekend in the WEC at Fuji, so maybe we hear something as early as the end of this weekend, but stay tuned for that. I think that there's potentially some pieces that we have yet to figure out for that puzzle going into 2027. Hopefully not, or 2026, sorry, getting too far ahead of ourselves. But hopefully not. I think you and I would both agree. We hope to see that program continue in both championships for next year.
Absolutely.
And that'll bring us right in nicely to the preview of WEC at Fuji this weekend. And I'll tell you what, we have made a conscious effort to try to get these shows a little bit shorter in length. We have on-track action in the WEC in a little bit over a half hour here. And I think...
Oh, really?
For previous episodes, we have not spilled into the race weekend with the exception possibly of Le Mans in 2024, where we might have had an episode on a Wednesday or Thursday, but I can't remember. But in the interest of continuing that streak, I'm going to try to wrap this show up before 9:15 Eastern. So this is the 100th, and yes, we're on track for FP1 to answer your question. That's the advantage of having a race in Japan is I'll jump off this show and look at live timing. 100th WEC race actually this weekend. Bit of a birthday celebration moment for them, dating back to the first race that we had, which I don't know if you were a sports car racing fan at the time, but I was. The 2012 12 Hours of Sebring, which was a unified race between the American Le Mans Series and FIA WEC. If you want to see a very chaotic race from a class perspective, that's the one you want to watch, because technically speaking, we had LMP1, which were the WEC LMP1 cars. We had P1, we had LMP2 and P2. No, is that right? Yeah, LMP2 and P2.
Two classes of LMP2.
Yeah, it was hectic. We had LMPC, we had GTE and GTE Pro or something. I'd have to look at it. I'd have to refresh my memory. But there were a lot of classes on track and a 60-plus car grid, I believe. Anyways, this weekend is a lot simpler. We have two classes on track. Of course, have the hypercars and the LMGT3 cars, which is what we've come to expect with the WEC right now. Weather for this race right now, although it's difficult to predict because Mount Fuji often does bring some unpredictability with the forecast. Looks like it's going to be a lot more promising than what we had last race out at Coda, which was a bit of a washout for the first 2/3 of the race. This one looks like it's going to be a lot drier at the very least. If it's going to be a lot cleaner, we have yet to find out. There's one manufacturer that's, of course, really looking to capitalize this weekend, and it's the winningest top-class manufacturer in the WEC, of course, being Toyota. 48 wins they've picked up so far in the LMP1 and hypercar classes, which crazy stat on its own, because I'm saying right now that we're going into its 100th race. Toyota's won damn nearly half of them. So it shows how much dominance they were executing just a couple of years ago in this championship, although right now they've definitely fallen behind. We're talking about a manufacturer that, believe it or not, actually hasn't picked up a podium this year. I had to look up that stat myself before the episode, and I really couldn't believe it until I saw it. But we're in a situation right now with 2 races to go where Toyota might be on a podiumless season in the WEC. So, looking to turn things around, of course, at their home race. This is a track where they've picked up 9 out of 11 victories here in the WEC era. We had a couple of years taken off the calendar for the pandemic. And the only 2 losses they had were both to Porsche in 2015 and 2024. That is a bit of a stats dump for you. Had to research all of those before the show, because if you remember 2 shows back, we're rubbish at stats on the spot. And so is Andrew Kissinger, and so is Aaron Pfeiffer. So we have to take this in-house, and we have to do these before the show now. Giving a little bit of a preview towards the championship scenarios for this weekend, though, because this is a weekend where Ferrari will also be looking to capitalize, because the 51 Ferrari does mathematically have the possibility to clinch the Drivers' Championship this weekend, or all three of the drivers in that car, technically, over the 83 AF Corse Ferrari and the number 6 Porsche. It's fairly unlikely, but it's definitely not impossible with the number of cars we have in the top class right now. To keep it simple, if the 51 Ferrari wins and the 83 finishes 10th, and they're not on pole, the 51 Ferrari would win the title no matter what, going into the bonus points race at Bahrain, where points are 1.5x.
True.
Keep things nice and simple in this series.
Yeah.
Also, the 6 Porsche, I didn't come up with the exact scenarios for them in this race, but really for them, they would need to be looking at like a race win or P2, and the 51 would really need to have a tough weekend to be in the picture at Bahrain. For the manufacturer's race, we're talking about 110 points being up for grabs between getting first, second, and pole position in both races at Bahrain and Fuji. There's 65 points right now between Ferrari and Porsche. So I think if you look at the way things have been going this year, it's pretty clear that Ferrari could very well lock up the championship this weekend. They only need a 2-point positive swing over Porsche, whichever way it comes, to clinch the championship this weekend. Interestingly, though, we do have a very close battle for second in the hypercar manufacturers championship. We have Cadillac, who's only 4 points behind Porsche.
Huh.
Of course, those two being the only other manufacturers besides Ferrari who have picked up a win this year.
They've quietly kind of snuck in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who else? Because it's really been only the three of them who've picked up race wins this year.
That's true.
And for Porsche, a lot of that weight is off that P2 finish from Le Mans with the 6 car.
True.
Interesting thing I do want to point out is that the championship scenario would actually look a lot different if the 50 Ferrari were not disqualified from Le Mans this year. Something that some people might have forgotten about. They were disqualified post-race after finishing P4 there. They would actually only be a single point behind the Le Mans winning 83 Ferrari, and still within a shout for sure if they had not been disqualified from Le Mans. But because of that, they're down in 4th in the standings right now, and really, like the number 6 Porsche, pretty much out of it, I would say, unless an absolute miracle tips their way. Finally, over in the LMGT3 class, if the 92 Manthey Porsche wins, the 21 Vista AF Corse Ferrari would need to finish 7th or 8th if they get a pole. And in 3rd place, the 33 TF Sport Corvette would need to finish 2nd or 3rd if they get the pole at this race. A lot of points, though, still up for grabs for the rest of the contenders. Like I said, we have a huge point swing with the bonus round in Bahrain, or the bonus points up for offer with that 8-hour race in Bahrain. Points are multiplied by an extra 50%. I think those are the main points I have, though, for Fuji. I've done a lot of talking here. But how about for you? Are you going to brave the overnight hours at this race? It starts at 10 p.m. Eastern time for you and I. So looking at a 4 o'clock in the morning race end here.
And is this on Saturday night for us?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That would be... Well, that's more doable. I'm like... Well, but I don't know why I would think it would be on a Sunday night for us either. So... Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if I'll brave the whole thing, but I might catch the opening couple of hours and then maybe catch the remaining hours on replay later on. That could be a realistic, path for myself, unless if there's some really enticing, racing that goes on in those first couple hours and I just can't put my head on the pillow, and fall asleep. So yeah, well, I'll probably catch the start of this race for sure, and then try and catch the rest of it the following day.
Fair
A
enough.
10 o'clock start is difficult. That's
I'm going to try to brave it. We used
Ooh.
to have two of these, actually. We used to have a race at Shanghai as well. Now this is the only one we have to deal with. So, for me, this is one of my favorite races on the WEC calendar. I would say, of course, after Le Mans, which will always be number one, Spa's probably my second favorite, and then this race is an easy third. Fuji is just a track that has given us a lot of great races before. One of the greatest battles in LMP1 hybrid history was between Audi and Porsche here back in 2015 in the rain. It might be one of the most viewed clips on the WEC YouTube channel. I still have distinct memories of being awake in the middle of the night watching that race. A couple of years ago here between the Toyota and the Porsche, we had a great race here as well in 2023. Where Porsche was hanging on for the first 4 hours or so, and then Toyota was slowly able to crawl back and end up winning the race. But I think there's some good storylines up for grabs here. We had Alpine on the podium here last year. BMW has been strong here as well. A lot of unexpected results could be in play here at Fuji.
Absolutely. Was it? It wasn't. It was one of the Porsche Penske's that won here last year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought this was the Joda Porsche that grabbed here, but it was not.
That was Spa.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be the Cadillacs.
Could be the Cadillac. 12 cars already picked up a race win. Like I said, back in Brazil. Maybe they'll capitalize off that good mojo from Indianapolis. Who knows?
True.
Even though it's a different team and a different championship with different BOP on a different continent.
A lot of differences
across the world.
We can dream, right?
On a track that's not flat.
Hey, it's not the craziest.
But apart from that, it's pretty similar.
Exactly. Same car.
Yeah, that's about the only similarity you're going to find. But yeah. I don't know if I have a whole lot else to go over for the preview of this race. Of course, we're going to be covering what actually ends up happening next week rather. Some of the keys for this race, other than that, are turn one. Obviously, this race with cold tires, cold brakes. We've seen a lot of messy turn one incidents here. You're talking about I don't know how many degrees the corner is, but it's more than 90 degrees. Sort of a hairpin turn one where the cars all stack up and try to file into a lane or two. Hasn't often worked out great, and we had an early safety car in the race last year. So surviving those first lap shenanigans is obviously going to be a big thing for both classes, but get through that. I think this race is probably going to have a lot in store for us.
Yeah, I feel like weather is always a big discussion point here too, right? You get the rain that can roll through and really shake things up.
Well, forecast right now is looking good. We might have some rain in the first two free practice sessions in 15 minutes here now.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. For the race, there's a lot of unpredictable things that could happen.
Hey, we said that we were going to get rain all week in Indy, and we didn't get any rain come race weekend. So
that's true.
It could flip the other way just as quick.
Will it into existence? Oh, by the way, I didn't even mention this. I'm allowed to pick the 31 Cadillac now in IMSA because my pact of not being allowed to pick them until they picked up a race win is over. You've had your luck. You've had it now because I'm picking you for Petit Le Mans. You're not going to win.
Oh, no, I already have my pick down for Petit, so.
Well, we'll save that for another show.
Yeah.
I guess we'll wrap this whole thing up with some questions. Get things off here before 9:15 local.
Somebody 14 minutes.
Yeah, somebody did correct me, or I guess clarify the classes that we had on track at Sebring in 2012 because I had forgotten.
I'm surprised that it's a character limit.
So get ready and get both hands out. You've got LMP1, P1, LMP2, P2, PC, GTE Pro, GTE AM, GT, and GTC.
It's ridiculous.
All on track at once. It was one of the eras of all time. Let's just say sports car racing now is You think nowadays is difficult? You ain't seen anything.
It peaked with that Sebring, didn't it?
Yep. To answer your question, Mr. Waffles, they do not stream FP1, although I wish they would.
Really?
No, yeah, we're only streaming FP3 for every race that's not Le Mans in the WEC.
Oh.
Yeah, I wish we could. I mean, I know there's arguments against it. I know they sort of use the first 2 free practice sessions as a production dress rehearsal, but like Formula E has streams for FP1 and FP2, so why can't we?
They don't throw those production ones up on WCTV?
No.
What?
No. It's only live timing. And you know what? Like for what it's worth, I know they're not listening, but like you could literally throw those up, just no commentary on YouTube for free. I don't care if you have some messy transitions in there as you experiment. I'll still watch it when I have the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just food for thought is what it is. I mean, I can't complain about not being able to watch free practice when most of them are at like 3 a.m. and I'm not going to watch anyways.
That's true.
But I guess IMSA doesn't either. So
yeah, they definitely do not. Although that they do the same thing. It's
right.
like
it's like the feed. If you're at the track, they have the feed there on the screen. So just take that, even if it's commentary free, put it on YouTube.
Put it on YouTube, guys. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to make some calls.
Yeah, well,
we're gonna have to make some calls.
Couple comments from earlier. Going back to talk about IMS, the food at IMS sure could use an upgrade.
Oh,
Here we go with the fight. The food itself in more than just one location, though I'm spoiled with Road America. Second part's definitely true. I saw somebody else throw a comment in that Road America probably has the best facilities for IMSA. And for a proper road course, I would say you're hard-pressed to argue that, at least from a fan perspective. But I don't know. You get some fighting words with the IMS food?
Oh, yeah. The IMS concession options were abysmal at, that would be an accurate way to describe it. I will say they did have an insane looking sandwich. I think it was a tenderloin sandwich. This thing was gigantic. Like the bun was like a regular size bun, but the tenderloin was like the size of your head.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with my fair share of pork tenderloins from IMS.
Okay, so you're familiar with that monstrosity.
When you're sitting and watching a 6-hour practice session for the third day in a row for the Indy 500, and it's the middle of the session, nobody's on track. Those things start calling your name.
Yep. I saw a lot of those going around. But I remember I wanted to say something about Indy and the facility. And I was talking with somebody throughout the weekend, and when I was talking to them, we kind of like, I think I can't remember who it was, but he mentioned, like this would be a really good track to come to if this is your first IMSA race that you're going to attend. And I think I couldn't agree more with that statement. I think just from the accessibility perspective, for being a first time fan, you're kind of new to everything. Indy's a really good track, I think, to go to. It's in a big city, so you have plenty of accommodation options. You get a good feel for what a weekend is like. If you bring the family or something, there's some other stuff going on in Indy that, they can go and check out while you're there. Like, I already talked about how it's easy to stay in tune with what's going on track pretty well wherever you are. You get some different perspectives from like the grandstand to some trackside stuff. I think, if you're a first time fan or like a first time attendee at a race, Indy could be a really, really good option. So I did want to throw that their way as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I've only looked at Indy from the lens of the 500, where it's like terrible to fly in and then find a place to stay. But for an IMSA race, I'm sure, you're not far from downtown. Hotels are going to be plentiful.
Yep.
Not impossible to get flights to. I I'll be honest. I think that argument gets a little bit harder now that it's not an endurance race anymore.
Yeah,
I've always said, I think Road Atlanta with Petit Le Mans is also another incredible example of that. It's why I keep going back every single year. If you're U.S. based or even international, you're trying to make it out to an IMSA race, every U.S. domestic airline under the sun flies to Atlanta. You're about an hour, give or change, with traffic outside of Hartsfield Jackson. Tons of hotel options, like a half hour from the track.
Yeah,
like that's the reality. I mean, it's better than Sebring and Watkins Glen, where you get a half hour from the track and there's like two hotels.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's my argument for that. And also, I think you're getting probably the best, most accessible endurance race on the calendar as well. And the reason I say that is you could argue that Watkins Glen maybe is a little bit easier if you're like a fan of traditional like IndyCar, say, or Formula One, where you're used to shorter races. A 6-hour race is naturally going to be easier than 10.
Yeah.
The one thing you're missing with races like that, though, and I've said this with the 6-hour races, I wish they would run into the night or at least sunset.
Yeah.
Because that was a talking point with that Indy race initially, is that this is something that they wanted to go at least into sunset, and it never really happened.
No.
I'd love to see it with Road America next year as well. I don't really think it's going to happen, but Petit Le Mans really offers you that good balance of most of the runnings in the day, but you're going to get a few hours at the end of the race where it's pitch dark out, and you get to enjoy that aspect of endurance racing as well. Anyway, that's
a
sorry
good
to be a
argument.
shill for Petit Le Mans again. This is what you're going to get with me.
Drop your promo code now for tickets. Use promo code GT Rain and get 15% off your Petit Le Mans tickets.
Yep, we'll set that up. I'm already talking to Road Atlanta anyways.
There you go. There you go. And it's definitely about a promo code, right?
It was, oh yeah. Moving on. Let's see. Were there any other questions? Oh yeah, going back to the stream and free practice. I think they vastly underestimate hungry sports car racing fans are for any type of on-track content. Yeah, we're nerds. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. If you're a sports car racing fan, I'm one, you're one. We're nerds. Like, we're going to watch. We'll watch the Le Mans test if you stream it.
Absolutely.
We'll watch IMSA testing in November at Daytona if you stream it.
But, give us that, please.
Yeah.
You don't even get live timing from that.
Petit Le Mans parking a pain. Too crowded. Yeah, I talked about that at one of the last shows. And I'll give a warning about that in the Petit Le Mans preview episode. If you're inside the track, you already made a mistake. You got to escape the inside of the track as early as you can. But I'll give a tip for that in the preview show. And I guess,
getting into the track is just as much of a pain.
Yeah. But once you're in, it's
okay. Once you're in, it's amazing.
Anyone been to COTA for WEC? I mean, I can answer that quickly. I haven't been. I know you haven't been. I'm 2 years on the trot now of saying I'm gonna go, and then I didn't. So maybe next year we'll make it happen.
I will not be going next year. I can tell you that.
Oh, he's already rolling it out. For me, it's just like, it's one of those races that I've talked about going to with friends, and we said, oh, let's go to WEC. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then somebody says, oh, I'm busy that weekend. Busy too. And then it's just me. And then it's, not as fun to go to races without friends. So I haven't made it out yet, although I'm not going to miss a chance to go to that track while we're in this golden era of sports car racing, as we love to call it. So maybe next year, hopefully we'll change things. I think that's about it. Yeah, we've got 4 minutes to spare. I'll call that a success.
Perfect.
If you want to go with that. Anyway, next Thursday, are we back? We're going to be talking about Fuji?
I believe so.
Cool. I got to check with you. I'm throwing you on the spot. Yeah, someone said do it. I went to Indy by myself. It's still fun. Yeah, I think we'll reach a point eventually where it's like, I'm going to go no matter what.
Yeah.
But, this year I would have been sitting in the rain, so I'll use that as my justification. I knew about it ahead of time. Anyway, next week we'll be back. We'll be talking about Fuji. We might have some news to unpack there. Next episode will be the 99th, which means I think the 100th episode is going to line up perfectly with a Petite Le Mans preview. Expect some special guests on that episode for the 100th. And with it being a Petite Le Mans preview, we got some fun things planned for that that I don't even think I've told you about yet. So
no, this is a surprise to me.
We'll get there, and that'll be a lot of fun, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So hope to see you all there. But before that, hope to see you next Thursday for another episode of this entire shindig. Hope to see you there. Take care.